very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to today's special elections show that's broadcast simultaneously on DSTV Channel 404 and SABC 2. And Leanne is away for tonight, and she'll join us again on Monday. But for now, it's me and him, and we'll focus on the state of hostels that are often crime-infested nests that even the police would prefer to avoid.
Indeed. Now, it's the creation of the apartheid system, but after 22 years, it could still not be eradicated despite some efforts. We've asked the question earlier in the day, should government demolish existing hostels or renovate them? You can always get hold of us in Pew, as you can see, hashtag SABC elections, and we're reading through the concerns, what you've got to say, and I must tell you, pages and pages of them coming through, so it's one to look out for indeed.
Believe me, Twitter's getting crazy because this is such a thorny issue. But then first, let's take a look at the hostels in Durban area. The past 5 years, 2 hostels, KwaMashu and Cleveland's, have made the news for all the wrong reasons. Yes, it's because of crimes such as, well, political murders are just a few, and fights over accommodation. It overshadowed the transformation of these areas. Linda Mkopozi filed this report for us.
Originally, a men-only accommodation. This changed after 1994. The ANC-led government took a decision to transform hostels into family units. In Durban, this promise was kept. Many old and dilapidated buildings made way for new flats. But officials admit that the lack of proper administration of the hostels contributed to some of the problems experienced here.
I must admit that the municipality has actually failed to administer the hostels. I think it's a weakness from our part. It's something that we must accept it. And it's something that municipality need to improve on to administer the hostel. Our administration is very poor when it comes to the management of the hostel. So we need to improve on that one because there are still so many people who are not paying rent.
Here at KwaMashu Hostel, killings were linked to politics and faction fights imported from rural areas. Officials and politicians from different parties tried to intervene.
All we need to do is to ensure that indeed we step up our efforts as government and as responsible citizens on the other hand to ensure that we find lasting solutions to the existing problem here.
The area is designated for 20,000 people, but over 100,000 live here.
The problem at KwaMashu is informal settlement. If municipality and hostel leadership work together to try to resolve the issue of informal settlement at KwaMashu, everybody can be happy because of there is something is coming up.
The number has increased drastically, but we will definitely face the hostel. So I'm saying it's a question of working together as stakeholders, working together with councillors, working together with all role players in the hostel, the committees that are there in the hostel, the police and everybody.
Cleveland's hostel, south of the city, has also had its fair share of problems. Nearly 100 people were killed here since last year. 2 factions fighting over the control of accommodation. Interventions by traditional leaders, politicians, and even the public protector did not seem to yield results.
The main reason we're here is the killings, that we've been requested to intervene to make sure that the killings are stopped. And the complainants even threatened to take us to the United Nations if we don't stop the killings. We have found that the storyline that is consistent is that it started with a scramble for accommodation. The allegation is that the way people that started selling the beds, they call them beds because in some of the rooms it's literally a bed that has to be sold, but in other places it's a whole room, but they still call them bed. And they say that those were being sold, and then there was a scramble for that. Others were resisting, and they claim some were put in, and then there's been killings from both sides of the conflict.
As William was what we are saying, to try to resolve that crime issues is to create the skill development in our hostel, because there is a community hall which we can use as a training center, different skills, e.g. plumbing, painting, bricklaying and so on. That is how we can cut down our unemployment in our hostels.
The eThekwini Metro Council says it's in the process of fencing Gleblands in a bid to curb violence.
Beside fencing the hostels as part of our plan to make sure that the hostel is safe, we decided also to erect CCTV cameras to assist the police to monitor the hostel.
No death has been reported at Gleblands in the last 3 months.
I think we have actually worked very well in the past 5 years. We are actually leaving a legacy behind. We're actually leaving a landmark behind that actually must proceed with the next new incoming leadership. There are so many projects that we have been able to implement in terms of housing, water, electricity, sanitation, job creation, and other projects as well. But when it comes to housing or hostels, we've got about 10 hostels in the municipality of eThekwini that were transferred by the province Department of Human Settlement to us. It's a question of making sure that those hostels are actually, properly managed.
Nxumalo says in spite of problems of crime and killings in these hostels, his outgoing council is proud of its achievements, including an unqualified report for the first time since the ANC took over the control of the metro in 2000. Linda Mkobozi, SABC News, Durban.
In Johannesburg, the single-sex hostels are no exception. They also still house thousands under poor conditions. And many of these remain a breeding ground for social ills and violence.
Now, the process of transforming them into family units is slow to gain traction. Mangoba Mchunu investigates for us.
Historical structures, both despised and feared. Built in the early 1900s as single-sex hostels to house thousands of migrant workers who toiled on the mines. During the last years of apartheid, they became political battlefields. Thousands lost their lives in clashes, mainly between the IFP and ANC supporters, almost plunging the country into civil war. 22 years after democracy, hostels are still associated with poverty, neglect, crime, and tribalism. Denver Hostel on the edge of Johannesburg was built in 1944. It's home to over 6,000 residents, most of them migrant workers from KwaZulu-Natal. Recently, it was in the eye of a political storm. Residents took to the streets over a planned demarcation. It would see parts of Ward 65, an IFP stronghold, moved to a DA-led ward.
We are still going to fight this. We are not happy at all about this.
Unemployment is rife here, and many do not pay for services. Most hostel dwellers are self-employed. Shu Kopla Vusimuzi Nkabinde has lived here since 1981. He is a respected Induna.
The biggest problem here is the filth. It's worse than a pigsty. No one cleans for us here.
22 years into democracy, life here remains the same. There's little service delivery at this hostel, and residents live in squalor. With the local councillor not able to effect any change, they say they feel neglected by government.
All the issues that have been raised with the provincial government, but they're not responding in satisfactory manner. They don't want to do anything with this situation.
The inner hostel is littered with filth. The smell of raw sewage permeates the air. There's also very little maintenance of aging infrastructure, with leaking water pipes and dysfunctional toilets.
We acknowledge that the conditions that they are subjected to are not good conditions, but also what we're encouraged by is the fact that they had stated during their march that they are prepared to pay for services. All we have to do is just to create time for the MEC to meet with them.
Programs to transform hostels into modernized family units have been met with some resistance. Officials are accused of corruption over the location of units. In 2015, residents of Deep Kloof Hostel in Soweto resorted to violence and destruction.
There was an uproar, but following 2 months, there was no longer an uproar because we had moved in and debated, talked with leadership and everyone and agreed. So Deep Kloof is no longer an issue now. People are in the rental houses, they agreed.
In other hostels, the upgrading is being embraced. Residents have committed to pay for services.
All Johannesburg hostels have no issue on rental because we have now agreed. It's a matter of now we must sort those that were damaged so that we then allocate people properly.
Despite the interventions, hostels can't shake off their notorious reputation. It will take years to unite families in decent units. Until then, a dark chapter of apartheid is being perpetuated. Mangoba Mchunu, Johannesburg.
Dark shadow indeed, as Mangoba said. In fact, now we go on to our question we've been asking you on Twitter. And I tell you, as soon as the question went up this morning, Simpir, everyone's been commenting. I'll take one from Justice for All at Unachi Gwaza. Unachi says, everything about these hostels screams apartheid era. Why keep them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A very good point there. And Rich Madala says hostels should be renovated, not demolished, as it will cost government a whole lot of money.
Carl Angus at Sageville says it's a hard issue. Either you make people homeless if you demolish them, or you keep people unsafe and under the legacy of apartheid.
And it's cheaper, Tabora Khori says it's cheaper to renovate so that more emphasis should be on the homeless. I think that's a very valid point there.
Yeah, look, I mean, we'll be reading these out throughout the evening, plenty of them, as you can see, pages full of them. And I think, it is going to be a sticky one because, it is a legacy of the past. A lot of people grew up, I mean, I know people in hostels, hostels just behind the house where I used to stay. So, people are there, it's not always crime and disgust, as a lot of people think. Some people, that's all they can afford. That's home for them.
And another thing, Minister Lindiwe Sisulu did say that she recently told Parliament that she wants to do away with the hostels as it's a relic of apartheid. But then with no better alternative for the millions of South Africans moving from the rural areas in search of work in the cities, I mean, closing such hostels will spark more unrest.
Anyway, we'll take a quick break. You're watching our SABC election special program. Stay with us. You're on SABC News Channel 404 and, of course, SABC 2.
We'll be right back.
When pregnant with her first daughter, Relebogile knew that she wanted her daughter not to experience any identity issues. This is when she decided to look for toys that resembled Black as Beautiful.
I think for me, it was also just to get our girls to have some sense of identity, some sense of belonging.
I grew up having black and white dolls and going to a multiracial school. I did not really see color. So for me, it's this thing of she should actually know what her true identity is.
Join your host, Buleng Mulebadze, on Bophelong every Friday at 17:30.
Welcome back now. Some residents of a small rural village in the Prince Albert municipality in the central Karoo are between a rock and, a hard place. They come from surrounding farms in the hope of getting houses in Classroom. 28 families have settled on municipal land, but the municipality does not want them there. With local government elections approaching, these families say if any political party wants their vote, they must deliver on their promises.
The name of this rural village between Prince Albert and De Rest means clear waters, but it's a rare commodity for a group of 28 families in the town's informal settlement. They are forced to share one tap and 2 communal toilets, one of which is broken.
We all have to use one toilet. All the children, all the adults, we use these 2. There are 2 toilets, but only one works. We want our houses, our own toilets, and our own taps. They say they're going to look at building houses. They say they will look at it after the elections.
Many of these families say they come from farms in the surrounding areas.
We need to emphasize that the current informal settlement in Classroom is an illegal one. And then the people lived then in the informal settlements got houses. And they even signed with the municipality that they will remove all the structures so that we do not have any informal settlement within the area.
The Prince Albert municipality is the second smallest in the Western Cape. It was governed by an alliance between the ANC and the Karoo Gemeenskap Party. Some 3 months ago, a split in the alliance left the KGP in control.
There was 2 toilets, then the people itself, they vandalized it. And we repaired the toilets again about a year ago. On the 27th of July 2015, we put up 2 new toilets. And as you said, the current media reports refer to as the one is not working. We try to educate the people living in the informal settlement to look after the toilets, to ensure that the toilets remain as it is, so that it can be used by the inhabitants of the informal settlement.
The town's other residents are also critical of the way the town is run.
Ons as gemeenskap het baie nodig in Classroom vir al die baan.
She says, our community needs a lot in Classroom. The sports field, our children can't play here. There's no grass. The change rooms need repairs. The roads need paving. The municipality who's been here for 5 years have done nothing. There's no jobs for young people. Our matriculants are sitting at home.
The KGP is confident of winning outright control in the August elections. But for now, the municipality says it has to wait for a new budget to be approved before it can try and improve the lives of these informal dwellers. Segwi Chetty, SABC News, Classroom in the Central Karoo.
It is almost 4 years now since the killing of 34 mine workers during a confrontation with the police at Marikana in the northwest. The workers had embarked on an unprotected strike over wages, and the incident highlighted the appalling conditions under which both mine workers and local communities were living. Residents of Marikana form part of the 160,000 people who live in informal settlements around Rustenburg, where socio-economic dynamics have created a bottleneck in the delivery of services such as water, such as electricity, housing and sanitation. Sillo Tatai visited Marikana and compiled this report.
This is Marikana, overlooking the world's 3rd largest platinum producer, Lonmin. There is a dire need for services such as water, sanitation and housing.
The main problem here is lack of clinics. We don't have a clinic here at Caesar. My twins are asthmatic. When they can't breathe at night, I run around alone. When elections come, government expects us to vote. They come to us, but when we need services, they are nowhere to be found.
During his visit to Marikana, EFF leader Julius Malema attributed these conditions to poor governance, which he says can be attributed to the continued exploitation of the country's mineral wealth. However, the government and its social partners' housing project will provide housing to qualifying residents. But a court battle looms after the illegal occupation of houses. The municipality says mining companies should adhere to their responsibilities.
Mines have in the SLPs small little projects which do not have an impact on improving the conditions of the living conditions of the mining employees and indeed the residents of the city.
This is one of the many informal settlements which have mushroomed here over a number of years. 60% of informal settlements in the Northwest Province are found in the Rustenburg local municipality. And more than 80% of people living here are economic migrants who come to Rustenburg in search of opportunities. It is evident that Rustenburg will be one of the fiercely contested municipalities in the Northwest. With a population of over 500,000 people, it will be a challenge for any party which emerges victorious to tackle the socio-economic issues facing the area. Selo Tatai, SABC, Marikana in the Northwest.
Well, please stay with us. We'll be back after the break and we'll have more interesting bits. People living in caves near Clarence. All this and more after the break. Do stay with us.
The cotton field story is being told through patchwork by artists to celebrate the diaspora in America.
Vitally important in telling the stories of what is happening in the refugee crisis, migration, with questions of immigration, and I believe I, as an artist, have a moral obligation to tell these stories.
It's through paper, brush, and paint that the different faces of women are reflected by this prolific painter.
Women face a lot of challenges, discrimination, sexism, and a lot of other negative. In my paintings, I try to send a different message.
Place of the G-Men and Father Huddleston's mission. Place of Balanski's and the Odeon Cinema, and let's never forget.
Join Refilwe for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Saturday at 12.
Usisiwe Jamsana, SABC News, Alice.
Mzwande Lembeje, SABC News, Doha, Qatar.
Kunatibingose, SABC News, Alice.
Diabo Seto, SABC News, Geneva, Switzerland.
Nampumela Losiziba, SABC News, Moscow, Russia.
Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Craig Murray, SABC News, Stellenbosch.
We bring the news back home. We keep the nation fully informed.
News Today provide news updates giving a wealth of knowledge. Breaking stories and crossing live for you. We follow business developments intensely. Experts and analysts tackle all challenging issues for you. We cover stories locally and abroad to keep you informed. We cover all sporting codes just for you. We are sure to give you weather to be ready for the day. Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Now, almost 100 people living in caves at Clarence in the Eastern Free State as a spiritual retreat will not be able to vote in this year's municipal elections unless they return to their hometowns.
And they are from different parts of the country and living voluntarily under harsh conditions.
No electricity, no water, and no sanitation. This is the reality for people here who answer their ancestral calling. Some are here for months, others for years, like this woman who arrived in 2006.
I cannot tell you because we don't know when we will get released. Remember, I'm not alone on this journey, but one day they will release us and we can go home.
I wasn't able to vote because from here to go at home, it's far, and then so I cannot vote.
Others will be able to go home to vote.
I'm going to participate because it is my wish, it is my voice. It is very, 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 very crucial to participate because at the end of the day, I'm going to benefit, not alone, the whole community. My child, my grandmother, my grandfather, everyone is going to benefit from my vote.
Most people living in this cave with no access to basic services have admitted that conditions are tough back home and say choosing to be here for religious purposes will prevent them from changing their communities for the better. Mbali Sibanyoni, SABC News, Clarence.
Come to the favorite part of my show. Yep.
Now a quick look at another small party in the Free State's Mangaung Metro with Bloemfontein at its centre. The newly established Agency for New Agenda is led by the municipality's former mayor, Papi Mkwena, who will be contesting the metro.
Our commitment to the people of Mangaung is to restore their dignity and their self-respect. We believe that voting for ANA is voting for a growing economy, better jobs, and prosperity and wealth for everybody. Voting for ANA is actually for a people's government, by the people, for the people. Voting for ANA is restoring the respect to citizens.
Now, a quick look at another party. The Northern Cape has 46 independent candidates, and one of them is Kenneth Petu, who's contesting the Hamahara community. I think I got that correct. Let's take a look. Oh, looks like we've lost the clip. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show, but before we go, there was a story we had earlier about the people who will be taking their, out in the Clarence Caves. They will not be able to vote. The quick one is, in fact, my director is telling me that we have it back, so can we go to it? Okay, let's go back to that clip. This is the Hamahara party that's also contesting in the Northern Cape, where 46 independent candidates are also up for that. Kenneth Petu speaks to us about it.
We formed the forum to save the community with so many things. Number one, our health system, it's so poor, it's pathetic. Number two, the living conditions that we're living in. And mind you, we're having a municipality which is surrounded by mines, which means we're having a municipality which is well off financially. But if you can go back there and look at our living conditions, we're having 5 towns in Hamahara, which is Olifantshoek, Dingleton, Durban, Shisheng, and Katu. And I'm from Katu, I'm from Olifantshoek. And then you go to Olifantshoek, the place is neglected. So as the forum, our needs, the needs of the community, is going to be our mandate, which means that the community eventually is the governance, which means that our community is going to control us and is going to lead us.
And we'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Till Monday, goodbye from Johannesburg.
Yeah, from myself, Simpi. We'll be back on Monday. See you with Len, 6 o'clock Central African time on SABC2 as well as SABC News Channel 404. This is your pre-election show. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Usisiwe Jamsana, SABC News, Alice.
Mzwandile Mbethe, SABC News.